Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And you get more information and find out about previous shows as well at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce two authors who wrote a book called Street Smart Safety for Women, and they are Laura Frombach and Joy Farrow. Is that correct? I have the name right?
Yes.
Okay, and what you can do, folks, is you can wave to all your friends and friends who are watching this. So if you're watching this, that's Laura. Laura, raise your hand. Who is Laura? That's Laura, and Joy is also, that's Joy. And what I should mention is that Laura is a former technologist for various Fortune 500 companies. She's also a survivor of generational family violence. Joy is a retired sheriff with 28 years of global street experience, with the Sheriff's Office of Broward County and in Florida. And she worked road patrol day and nights, handling every call imaginable. And Joy, I should ask you, so you mentioned 28 years of experience. So again, you're one of these other women who started when you were 7? You were like the youngest.
Yes, I did.
Okay, the youngest person they ever had in the office. Well, let me ask you this then. In terms of the book itself, I can maybe understand, I guess, Joy writing the book and getting involved in it. But let me ask then, in terms of how did you get involved in this, Laura? In other words, writing a book on the topic.
Well, as you mentioned in my bio, I come from generational family violence. And obviously I knew about that when I was very young, but I had an aha moment several years ago. And that moment was when I correlated my mother's mental illness with the domestic violence that she suffered at the hands of my father. And that really was life-changing. And I didn't correlate that type of activity before, that domestic violence could cause mental illness, could result in mental illness. And, since I grew up with it and had violence my entire childhood, I grew up sort of thinking that violence was normal, but it's not normal. And the reason I got involved is because I want to tell people who had perhaps grown up like me that violence isn't normal. Violence in your life, in your home, is not normal.
And when did you have this epiphany? You said you came to that realization.
As recently as about, 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so before that, you never really saw the correlation, and all of a sudden 5 years ago?
No, I'll tell you, my mother, as I said, was mentally ill. And the interesting thing about it was the people my mom had grown up with, my grandmother and my aunt, kept insisting that my mother wasn't always like that. They said she used to be the kindest person that they ever met. And, the mother I had was far from the kindest person I ever met. And we talked about that a great deal over the years, with my aunt and grandmother. And, over the years, I would think about it off and on. And then, just like I said, a few years ago, it just came to me almost like a bolt out of the blue. And I'll tell you, my next thought was, who in the hell can't take a beating? And, so that really was almost like a secondary epiphany, because I realized my own thought process, and I realized, how ingrained it was in my thought and my thinking, really.
And let me ask then, Joy, how you got involved in this. So I understand, your background, but how do you, I guess, first of all, meet up, the two of you?
Well, we actually met online about 15 years ago. And we've been together ever since, and we've been married for 8 years. So while I was working, I would tell Laura a multitude of calls that I went on. Oh, just deep stories. And I just can't believe what happened to these people, time and years of this. And, she just thought about it and went, and other people over the years have said, you should probably write that down. Well, Laura, I think, was probably taking notes. and said, maybe we can write a book. And we kicked it around, and I think she got started on it. And it wasn't until I actually retired, because I just didn't have the time when I was working to do it. So we waited until I retired. So it was about 6 years ago that we started it.
And talk about the process, which I find fascinating. So the two of you decide you want to write a book, and this was 6 years ago. How long did it take you to write the book?
It was off and on. Laura was taking writing classes, and so it was like a little bit, and it started out a little different. And so it really evolved over probably the last maybe 4 years. It started to take shape a little more.
Now, Laura had mentioned to me off the air that she had at least had some writing experience. You mentioned you wrote a memoir yourself. When did you write that?
That was about 7 years ago.
Okay, so that gave you, I guess, a taste for writing, or what it was going to be like. How was this process? How did this process differ from that, aside from the factor that the two of you were writing this together? Was that tough to write a book together?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
It sounds it, yeah. Why
yes,
so?
It was. We both, it turned out, even though we agreed that we were going to write a book and we both had our own topics, we both had very different ideas about the things that would be included, the way the book would be written. And it turned out that we agreed on very little.
So how do you get, then that's an interesting point. How did the two of you then get together to the point where you actually got a book done?
We worked with a writing group.
Okay.
I joined a writing group, and then Joy joined the writing group. And we used our group really as our judge and jury. There was an editor that worked with us. And so when we disagreed or really couldn't see our way forward, they were very helpful in helping us to see which path might be the best, and enabling both of us to compromise and bring out the final product, which we both could not be happier with.
Now, is this something you recommend, I guess, to other people, that if they want to write a book, to get into a writing group or writing clinic or something?
I could not recommend that highly enough. Writing by its nature is a very solitary experience, and it's you and your laptop and the thoughts in your head, and then the thoughts in somebody else that somebody else has. But having a community and having a group to be able to bounce ideas off of, or even just sit on a Zoom call with everybody writing, nobody's talking to each other, but we've made that commitment. And I think also being in the group and making that commitment, we're going to have chapters done. We're going to read chapters to the group. That really, it kept us on task and to be able to move along, because life happens. And for us to be able to stay focused and write the book, a community was invaluable.
Well, and it was also very helpful that other people listened to certain parts of it, including the editor, to be able to say, well, maybe if you did this, that would help, or condense this, or elaborate on that. Okay. Because in your own head, you're like, that's good. I don't have to do anything else with that. And that was a little bit of a problem.
Well, Joy, if you would give a shout out, then you mentioned this group. Could you give the name of the group, or where you found them, and some of the people, the person in charge of it?
It's AJ's top 3.
Yeah. AJ Harper, top 3 book writing.
Okay. And how did you find them?
I found AJ through some friends, and they were writers as well. And they told us about AJ. And so we joined her group, and she actually helps people write nonfiction. That's her mission.
Okay, and so talk a little bit about the process, because I find this fascinating that, the two of you had this idea but you almost needed this other person, this AJ, a person that helped you along. How long did you work with her?
I'd say probably 3 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that long?
Mhm.
Right. We would meet with the group every month, but then every week we would sit through live edits where AJ would edit other people's books, and also to see how the editing process worked, in which she would tell other people, was helpful as well in helping us almost self-edit, before we got to the group. Because, Hemingway said, first drafts are crap. And what Hemingway didn't say is, so is draft 1 through 35.
But now I'm more interested in what Frombach says, forgetting Hemingway, now you becoming the expert with this. So now, out of the people you were with, Joy, you were so working with other folks as well. How many of them also came up with finished books? Or did they all come up with finished books? Most of them?
I want to say 3.
Okay, but a bunch of them
3
did
with
finish book,
finished
and some of them are still working on it. Their book.
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
Talk, if you would, then, for the benefit of folks not familiar with this. So you went to reading to this group, and you worked with them for a period of time. Then what happened? So you came up after 3 years with a final manuscript. We can see in the background. What do you then do? Do you look for a publisher, or did you find a publisher on your own, or how'd that come into play?
I wrote a book proposal, and I submitted it to agents, and, we got our fair share of rejections. And then, in addition to submitting it to agents, I started submitting it to smaller publishing companies that did not require an agent. And that's how we found our publisher, Health Communications. They were the original publishers of Chicken Soup for the Soul, so I was familiar with them.
Okay, well, that certainly gives it credibility, that.
Right.
Right. So this will be great. They'll help you get the first 1 million sold of this book, first 1 million, 2 million. And it's funny you say that the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Does that lend itself? I'm just curious, and we'll talk about this book, but does that lend itself to also having follow-up books after this book? So you wrote this first one. Are there other topics that are going to come down the road?
Yes.
Related to this topic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Joy, not to talk about the other books, but about this particular book, can you kind of give like a Reader's Digest summary of what this book is and who should be reading it, if you would?
It's really for all women that have felt unsafe at any point in their lives and want to do something about it, want to change, want to feel more confident.
And so people can do something about it. What's the very first thing they should do then, aside from getting the book? So that's, well, buy the book and then they'll learn a lot. But after they buy the book, what's the first thing a woman should do?
Pay attention to their safety intuition, we call it. That's your inner voice. And we realized, and especially in all the years I worked in law enforcement, I realized that a lot of women, that was a problem, is that they didn't listen to themselves. And was our biggest idea in the book, was we wanted women to listen to themselves more and stop doubting themselves and second guessing themselves and being persuaded by other people. And that was a big problem for women in a lot of crime victim situations. They knew that they shouldn't have done something. Oh, I shouldn't have gone here, shouldn't have gone out with them. A lot of should-haves in their own head, things happen. But those are things that women have said to me over the years,
And so when they say that to you or they read the book, what's the tip off that some change is needed or something needs to be done to get out of the cycle?
We'll say domestic violence, bad relationships, bad dating relationships, going out with the same type of people that have caused you harm in the past, being victimized when maybe if you made a small change to your daily lives, you know, that wouldn't happen, perhaps.
One of the other things that Joy and I discussed, and Joy, as she mentioned, would say this many times, is that women said, you know, I knew I shouldn't do this, I knew I shouldn't do that. But the thing about women and what we focus on is that we are conditioned and socialized to be so nice, to be so polite. And that doesn't mean that we're suggesting that people aren't nice. You know, we're both very nice people, but women are conditioned to be nice to the detriment of ourselves. And so that is our message to women, I would say, is that you can be a nice person, but you can also keep yourself safe and draw those boundaries.
And talk about that point in terms of keeping yourself safe. So they get the book, they start reading it. What are some of the ways, especially Joy, with your background, that women can keep themselves safe? You know, say a couple of things off the top of your head.
First off, you don't have to stop for every stranger. Like we say, you're not the world's Swiss Army knife. So, you know, just because you're flagged down or somebody stops you, sometimes those are red flags. So you don't have to suddenly think that you need to, you know, shed your clothes and out comes the cape and I have to take care of this. You don't. You know, I'm sorry, I can't right now. I can't go over there. But you know what? I'll call 911. I'll get help. If you can, maybe you can. You know, but in a lot of women's heads that I've talked to over the years, they've looked at me and said, oh, I never thought to say I couldn't. Or, you know, if somebody says, excuse me, miss, you know, they want something from you. You don't have to stop and answer them. And that tends to cause a lot of problems, is when women do that. You know, they don't realize, and they're just stopping, and they're not thinking about their own safety. You know, they think, oh, how can I help this person? Well, the other person already knows why I want you to stop. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but you have no clue. So if this person attacked you, you were thinking this is a wonderful thing that they're stopping to talk to me. You're a celebrity and I'm just gonna take the time to chat. There's no thought as soon as somebody says, miss, oh, yes. So, you know, you need to think for a second, what does this person need? They're not running after you with your purse. They're not looking to give you money. They want something from you.
Well,
So those are things.
Let me ask you an opinion then, because it's a very hot issue in the Asheville area. I don't know, are you folks in the Asheville area, or where are you?
No, we're not. We're familiar with this.
No, but you're in Florida? Is that where you are now?
We're in Central Florida.
So let me ask you, this is a very hot issue in Asheville right now, but the whole panhandling, you know, thing that, and I'm sure it's in Florida, it's elsewhere too.
Right.
But a lot of people, almost what you were saying, feel very sorry for people. You know, they come up to you you're in a car and they want something, as you said. What's your advice on handling that?
That's a problem. And it's always been a problem. And it was a problem when I was working, and it's not suddenly going to stop. But, you know, you still need to realize your own personal safety distance. A lot of people that live on the street, they have mental issues and they need something. So either they need money for drugs, they want to have food, but a little sandwich usually doesn't help them. Some of them just want your money. They just want to attack for no reason. So they're not always the friendliest people. And I think a lot of people mistake certain situations for, oh, that's too bad, for, you know what? They have nothing to lose, and that's why they don't care. You know, when they just attack somebody. So there's no warning when people living on the street or just anybody will attack. They're not going to suddenly say, I'm about to attack you if you don't give me more than that. So you're in a nice car and they're going to ask you for money, or they see that you're going into the store and you're going to say, oh, let me dig through my wallet and see, oh, I don't know, what do I have here? Well, more than that person. So these are just things that you have to think about when you're deciding how close you should get to, you know, people that don't really care what happens.
And even as you both mentioned, kind of thing, it's one thing to be nice, but you don't have to be nice to everybody, you know, or kind of, I guess, pick your spots
Right.
where you want to be nice. Or if you're, I guess, talk a little bit about that if you would too, Laura, in terms of when you work with other people or just general safety, what are some other things you should be aware of? In other words, we talked about people approaching you off the street. Are there any other red flags that women in particular, but guys as well, should be aware of?
One of our favorite scenarios is women in their car. And we pull up to a parking place, we're checking our phone, we're checking our makeup, we're doing whatever, and somebody comes up and knocks on the window. Knock, knock, knock. Can you roll your window down? And, you know, by instinct, you know, I'm a nice person, I want to roll my window down. And it turns out that that is a very favorite tactic for predators. And you don't have to roll your window down for anybody because you can talk to them through the window. The other thing I would note is I am not a very big person. And so I have been personally attacked, you know, a couple times in my life. And so what I would advise women is to not let people get particularly close to you. Now, you know, we live in a crowded world, you know, you take the subway, you are shopping in the mall, whatever you're doing. But if you're out and about, you're shopping, you're coming back from the mall, and somebody approaches you, you do not have to let them get too close. And one of the things that we suggest is that women, everyone really, but women in particular, carry self-defense items. And when you're by yourself, let's just use the walking back to your car from the mall scenario. When you're by yourself in a area where you could be attacked or somebody could get too close to you, is to have that pepper spray, have that pepper gel, have something in your hand that if the situation arises, you're not fumbling in your purse, you're not caught unaware, that you already have a mental plan in place, that you know exactly what you're going to do. And, you know, working with Joy, training with Joy has really made a big difference in my life. And that was one of the reasons I encouraged her so highly to write the book as well, is because Joy lives her life differently than most women. And that was a big surprise to me, and that went differently than I lived my life as well. You know, I'd roll my window down, like I said, or I would just wander along the street. But now when I go someplace, I have a plan. If something happens, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And really that gives me a lot of confidence, a lot more than I had before.
Is that what you recommend, the pepper spray?
We do.
Mm-hmm. And you get that just online, or you get it anywhere you can get it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Amazon, anywhere. Actually, the gun stores, sporting goods stores,
mm-hmm. Online.
Mm-hmm.
Joy, what about the one thing that you see a lot or too often is you see somebody approach you in a car or in a street with the two kids with them, or the you know, you see that a lot too, mm-hmm. that you know, try to get sympathy, or have you seen that a lot?
Yeah, it's sad because they're a lot of times they're just using them and then they come back. I see there's a family nearby us that does that at the food store. Every Friday, she's out there with the kids, and I'm like, that's just horrible, you know.
And so what do you tell people? How do you respond to that if you're approached?
I know, actually, you know, you can call the police. and have them investigate and see what is happening with this person. I mean, where are they living? What is going on? Do the children need help? You know, something. What is the woman doing besides taking them and sitting outside in front of Publix, which is where she's sitting, and with a little sign?
I guess the key is back to what Laura said, is to not get yourself in that position by not engaging. I guess the more you engage, the more you're setting yourself up for potential trouble down the road.
Right.
So that's true.
You know, it's just, you have to be conscious of who you're talking to and why is this man approaching me? It is very odd for men to approach women, and women need to realize this. You know, you're not that special that every person on the planet is going to call out to you and need what from you. That's what you should be thinking. Immediately, you should be turning around going, why? That's what you should be thinking, not what should I do for them? And that's the other thought. It's not why, oh, why? What are they asking? But what you should do is just look and wave them off. I can't right now, I'm going. That's a red flag. Why? Men don't need to do that. Women rarely do that. Maybe they'll come up to your car, but they rarely flag you down. So that's something.
So going to ask you, so this is more prevalent than for women to be approached by a man almost all the time. The book itself, the concept, although it's Street Smart Safety, is this just for women though? Or is any of it relevant to guys as well?
It is. It is very helpful to men also, because we want them to understand a lot of the dating issues and domestic violence. So there's a lot of things that they can learn from it also.
The other thing is that a lot of Joy's tactics that she learned in her years on the street can apply to anybody. You know, what kind of personal defense items to carry, some things to save you from shams, scams, and cons. I mean, those problems are universal. The things that we focus on primarily for women are the mental and emotional aspects of women being socialized to be so polite. But everybody can there are takeaways for everyone in our book.
Now, the perfect timing of this book is coming out, we think, middle of October. That's when it's supposed to come out.
October 3rd.
October 3rd. So it's, I don't know how people would receive it, but it's almost perfect in time for the holidays. You know, you want to give somebody a gift. And when you think about it, wouldn't this be a great gift to give to women? Some may not love it. They might want something else, but this is still a perfect thing for women to get for the holidays, you know? And so if you're looking for it, and so it's coming October 3rd, how will people find the book at that time?
They can go to our website, streetsmartsafety.org, or contact us on our Facebook page, Street Smart Safety for Women. And they can ask us questions. They could send us messages. You know, we speak with people and, you know, give them advice or the best way to approach situations that they may not be able to talk to anybody else about, or they may not feel safe speaking with anybody else about.
So both those sites are up and running. Is that correct? The website and the Facebook page?
Yes.
Very active. We're very active.
Do you folks also talk to groups, or are you available to make presentations if people want to get in touch with you?
Yes.
Yes. They can feel free to contact us. We have given a number of presentations in our local area, including to one of my favorite groups, the Women's Vets. Okay,
cool. So do you enjoy doing that, making the presentations?
Yes, that was fun.
Okay, it'll be more fun when we have a book to show them, or, you know, listen and then buy the book and purchase it as well. What do you see after this book comes out? I guess two things. One, what do you want the takeaway from reading the book? Is there one big thing you want people to get out of reading the book? I would say the key takeaway for me is for women to listen to themselves.
If it feels wrong, if it feels out of place, it is. Don't minimize it. Just understand that your, what we call safety intuition, your instincts are telling you that something is awry, and don't minimize it.
And so folks go to the website. Is there other stuff up there aside from the book? Are there other tips and information they can get from looking at the website?
Yes, there's videos. We have done a number of interviews. They can learn some things. They can learn some takeaways from the book. The site is devoted to the book. We have a blog as well that we're very active on, and we give people long-term strategies to think about, and also some short-term tactics that they can use every day.
And the name of the blog? I'm sorry.
We actually even have a donation page for domestic violence.
Very nice.
Too.
And so the name of the blog is what?
It's on our streetsmartsafety.org book website, and it's a page on our site.
And the best thing too, Laura, is also going to be on the website will be this Blaine's World podcast. So people can, if they miss it, they can see the Blaine's World podcast.
And we will.
After the book comes out in October, do you have a next book in mind?
We do. We're kicking around some ideas for it, but we're definitely going to have a follow-up.
Right. True to form, we both have ideas, and we both have and we both have our own ideas. So we're going to have to go back to the group and have them help us out.
But will it be a safety related book, or would it be something else?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, women's safety is such, really, the violence against women is such an epidemic. 1 in 3 women globally, the UN and the United Nations Health Organization note that 1 in 3 women around the world have been sexually or physically attacked once in their lifetime. And, you know, those are horrific statistics. And so we would like to try and make a difference with that, and try and help women keep themselves safer and reduce their chances of being one of those statistics.
You know, I see one other thing two of you doing, if you haven't thought about it already, but this would also be a great documentary, you know, or you know, you're taking what you're in the book and making it a film of sorts. Have you thought about that, or is that in the works?
I have thought about that. Would be a fantastic idea.
Yeah. So, you know, Street Smart Safety, the book, and Street Smart Safety, the documentary or the film or something, but it would seem there'd be a big interest in this as well. Let me just I'm sorry.
And I would say to that end, that it wouldn't just be us saying what our experience has been and our research has. It would be women telling their own stories.
You know, just listen to you, that I think would really be cool. That's the whole purpose of it, you know. Unfortunately, but 10 women, whatever the story is, to hear them tell the stories, where you probably thought of it already, but I can see that being your next book as well. You know, the stories that these women tell. To recap, best bet, if they want to find out about Street Smart Safety, the book, October 3rd, it's coming out. It'll be on, I assume, Amazon and everywhere else as well.
Yes, all booksellers, Walmart.
Great. So how do they get that again, the website?
Streetsmartsafety.org, and the links to all independent bookstores, Amazon, everywhere books are sold.
And this must have been a big learning experience for the two of you as well, to not only write the book, which is fascinating how you wrote it, but then also learn how to market it or get the word out. Are you getting help in that, or is your book group helping you that, or are there other people helping you?
We actually have a public relations firm helping us.
Okay, so
this morning we were on Fox News Chicago.
Very exciting. And this evening you're on Blaine's World. You know, what could be
and this
better?
evening we are topping it off with Blaine's World. The maraschino cherry on the Sunday.
Okay, I love it. Anyway, very exciting stuff. I look forward to seeing the book October 3rd. I wish you a lot of luck. And thank you very much for being my guest on this Blaine's World podcast.
Thank so much
for having us. This was wonderful.
And I'm going to sign off now, but then stay with me a second. We'll wrap up afterwards. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.